guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Berna. I talk about all things film, fashion and history. If you're interested in those kind of things as well, feel free to go through my channel. I've been doing this for a long time, so hopefully I can find something of interest for you too. As you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about Oppenheimer. Yes, Oppenheimer the film. I did the Barbieheimer. I did Oppenheimer first and then Barbie afterwards. And oh my god, I've never done two movies in one day before. It was the first time I've ever done that. And wow, it was... I like how we ended it, but I get what they say, how Oppenheimer first, following after Barbie, can be quite exhausting. It was pretty tiring, I'm not going to lie. I was a bit tired afterwards. Don't know why. I really enjoyed the story, and I'll get more into that in a second. So hopefully you've seen the movie, because I will be doing some spoilers and non-spoilers. So you'll get the gist of what I'm saying. Let's go. This is a non-spoiler part as well, so I don't want to give away too many details, but it is worth it. You don't have to know much about the history of it. You don't have to know much about who he is. You don't have to know much about even, I guess, the time frame. If you don't know much about that time or what happened or the person, and you're just looking for a explosive movie to watch, you could still go ahead and watch it. Like, it's not going to miss out on anything. It's still very worth seeing, if that makes sense. I was so shocked to what Oppenheimer was going to be like. I knew nothing about him. I went in there completely as an open book, a sponge, ready to soak in the life of Robert J. Oppenheimer. That's actually really funny. And I thought he'd be this shy, quiet scientist, physicist who was just like into himself and his own ideas, and he just created this thing that was absolute destruction. He is not that at all. I'm sorry, but he is like a homewrecker. He broke up a marriage. I don't care what anyone says. He's a homewrecker, okay? Just because you call a woman a homewrecker, you can also call a man a homewrecker. Let's make that fair, okay? He did. He was very much a cheat. He very much was egotistical, and he wasn't, I wouldn't say arrogant, but he did let his, I guess, I'm going to call it intellectual ego. Get the better of him. He was such a priss. He was not the kind of character or the person I thought he would be at all. I thought he'd be this shy, quiet physicist, kept to himself a little bit, but was very driven on this idea that he had, and he was not that at all. So I was really, really shocked. Thinking about the scene. My god. And this is why they're actors and I'm not. The scene where he's getting interrogated, and there's that scene, and they're all just sitting there, and she's staring at Oppenheimer's wife, Emily Blunt's character. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to get into details. And they're all just, the rest of them in the background, Matt Damon, all that, just watching. That's why they're actors and I'm not, because I would no way in hell, no matter how much money you paid me, I would not do that. I'm sorry, I would not do that. And I was really, it took me by surprise, and I was just like, okay, that's, yeah, okay. It was so awkward, I'm not gonna lie. It was so random and so weird. All CGI. I agree with him. I love that he's taking a step back. He's able to have balance, how it's supposed to be, not too much of one or the other. And the fact that he used film, I still am astounded by that, because film can be so difficult to work with. I haven't done it personally, but I know people who have. So it's just, as a creative person, just to admire someone else's creativity and their techniques and process is just mind-blowing. So Cillian Murphy did a phenomenal job as Oppenheimer. I saw a couple interviews afterwards, and he really narrowed down his mannerisms, and especially the tone of voice. That was the first thing I noticed from Cillian's character, like his acting. I was like, wow, he's got the voice down to the T. Same with Emily Blunt, the voice as well. People from that time is such a specific kind of tone of voice and mannerisms and speech. And to study, I guess, the linguistics a little bit here and there, so you can really capture it from that time and era. They did such a good job. At some points, I felt like I wasn't even watching a movie. I became a bystander, and then I became someone who was just in the room with them, which was a bit uncomfortable in some scenes, I'm not gonna lie. But it did a really good job of capturing, of being inside the mind of Oppenheimer and seeing his perspective and seeing the world. And I guess the situations that he was put in with the people that he was with, they did a really good job of capturing it. It was very, very immersive. It's a spoiler-free section of the video because I don't want to give away too much. I will say it's worth seeing. I thought it'd be overhyped, but it wasn't really overhyped. You have to have patience because it's 3 hours long. The pace is very quick though, so you don't really realize until, I think, honestly, towards the end, you can kind of feel it a bit that, okay, it's getting a bit longer. It's a bit long, it's a bit dragged. But besides that, if you're in for the storyline, for the plot line, you really got to pay attention. Honestly, it's this movie where you can't really just sit down and just kind of like, because you're going to miss a whole bunch of stuff because there's so much content. So if it's a movie that you just want to see explosions for the fun of it, I don't think you will like it that much because it is pretty long for something just for explosions. But if you're into the context, the time, the history, but you like drama biographies, I would classify it as that, as a drama biography. If you like those kind of historical movies with an action-packed cast, which is so good acting, like no faults anywhere, you would like it. So now I'm going to go to the spoiler section, which is another thing that I'm going to talk about in another video, but creators and their creation. I'm a creative person. I would say that I'm a highly creative person. Intellectually, I can get bored, but I still am interested in that way. I'm very much open-minded. So when I look at anybody who's a creator, I'm talking even including scientists, people in that kind of field, I love seeing who the person they become throughout their process of their creation. And I was actually baffled because I realized creators, in terms of creative people and intellectual people, doesn't matter what you're creating, we're very much the same, two sides of the same coin, and how your creation can actually your creative idea can actually impact and have consequences on yourself and other people, and how a lot of the times you get so lost in that creative process that you don't think about the outcome. And that's exactly what happened to Oppenheimer. In a silly way, not in a massive scale that he did, I could relate how your creation and your creative process of that creation can just devour you, mind, body, and soul. And I think that's what happened to him, is he got so lost in having an idea and just wanted to create it. He didn't think about the future outcomes and consequences, even though when you look at the film, there was so many times colleagues and other people told him that you're going to have future consequences. Have you thought about the final outcome? Even Albert Einstein himself told him that, you know, just because you have the power to do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Like, you got to create something that's going to be catastrophic. So he got warned a lot of times. That's what I mean. Throughout your creative process, there's always signs on whether it's a good idea or not. But he got so lost in just building this idea and making it real that he did not think about the future outcomes. And I find that absolutely hilarious because it's something that happens every day until this day. And if you take away, I guess, the physics side of it and more about putting the theory into practical, and he, at the beginning, you see he wasn't that good at practical. He was more focused on theory. You can see how that had a future outcome for him later on anyways. So that probably sounds like word vomit, but like, I was so like, does anyone else in here see this the way I'm seeing it right now? Because this is actually very relatable and like absolutely hilarious. So that's another one about it. I personally honestly didn't feel like Cillian and Florence Pugh's character had much of a connection. It was pretty dry. Unless it's supposed to be dry, then that makes sense. Then they did a great job, but it didn't feel, I don't know, because it was rushed, but it didn't feel like anything there. It was purely based on belief and intellect. It was that emotionally, I mean, I wasn't really feeling anything there, but I guess it does kind of make sense because it's counteractive, because empathy is the one thing and ethical reasons is something that is lacking from the whole thing, like not from the movie, but because that's just the person he was. So I did find that, was it purposeful that it felt a bit dry? Was it just the connection between the actors wasn't really there? Like, I'm not quite sure, but I wasn't really feeling it. The movie was fast. I will say at the beginning, it did feel a lot like a ball was rolling and then it got stopped. And then it was rolling and then it got stopped. And it was rolling and it got stopped. It was rolling and it got stopped. That just kept happening and happening. And then I think by the you get through the whole process of about Oppenheimer's life and then about what he's building and then you've done the Trinity test. When you get past all of that, you deal with the consequence side of things, the pace felt changed. Like it was still a bit fast, but still so slow. It was a bit wordy. Like you could tell they were just trying to spill as much information and content out as much as possible. Maybe they ran out of time, or the 3 hours wasn't enough time. I mean, this is a whole person's life, so it kind of makes sense. But I was curious, okay, like, are we going to see the consequences of his decision now? And we did. But I guess the pace from then on just felt really slow afterwards. Like it was really rolling and rolling, and scenes were like, okay, we had this situation, cut, this situation, cut, this situation, cut. And then it just goes back to another situation, cut, but then that situation would be dragged out. You know what I mean? When you watch the movie, you know what I mean? Like, so then I have my favorite characters. These were the underdogs for the film. There was so many that I actually really liked. Matt Damon's character, who was a general, I was so surprised by, I guess, I guess his kind of character, like how their relationship was forming throughout the whole process, especially during Trinity, and how you can kind of see it form and build. So I really liked his character too. Albert Einstein was also one of my favorites. He was so cute. I found it so funny how like he came to him, Oppenheimer came to check if the theory and formula was correct. And he's like, yep, it's correct, but I'm not going to help you. Like he basically said, yep, but that's not my problem. And I looked at my friend and I was like, that's so funny. He's doing like, it's not my problem at all. He was pretty much there as like the advisor to Oppenheimer, and I just found that so funny. And he literally warned him, like he told him like, they'll give you prizes and all that stuff, but it won't be for you, it'll be for them. And I like how they all got older, and then later on they showed you what he meant, and it happened to him. He got medals, he got awards, all that stuff, but it wasn't really much for him. It was mainly for themselves, basically so they could justify what they had done. Josh Hartnett's character as well, I'm not quite sure. He was the one who wasn't the theory guy, but he actually built the machinery and technical advisor scientist. I'm not quite sure what his character name was, I forgot, but I wish he got more credit, you know, like it's such a great comeback, and we haven't seen him in a lot of films in such a long time. And I know Robert Downey Jr. did such a great job as Strauss, but like, come on, like Josh Hartnett, like he really is, his character like stands his ground. He doesn't get persuaded by the general or anybody else, and I really think he had a lot of time throughout the movie as well, so I just think he should get his applause. You know, he did such a great job, and I think he did an amazing job. And I found it funny that they talked about Pearl Harbor, and he was one of the actors who was actually in the movie of a guy in Pearl Harbor. So I found that really funny. It was a very full circle moment. Also, Oppenheimer's wife, Emily Blunt's character, I really love that scene where they were interrogating her, and she's basically like, oh, well, yes, but that you said that word, but that word also means something else. And that's so true in that situation. Like every word can bring a whole different meaning to the whole sentence and the whole question. And she was to be like, yeah, oh yeah, maybe it was 16, 17, maybe 8. I don't quite remember. She was like 17, 18. Like I love how she was toying with them just as she knows that they were toying with her. So I love that. And must have been so frustrating because so many times throughout the movie, she tells Oppenheimer, like, you have to stand back. Like, all the breadcrumbs and the pieces, can't you see what Strauss is doing? She's the one who kept saying it's Strauss. Like, she knew from the get-go. Like, she knew what was happening. But obviously, back at the time, they didn't value women's opinions and thoughts. And I just can't imagine how frustrating it would be to know what's going on and to have no one around you listen to you. And the way she displayed that and showed that was just like, I really like how they did that. Like her character does carry, I guess, a lot of the emotional baggage of Oppenheimer, and they did a phenomenal job capturing that, like, immensely. Also, the other scientist guy, the one who was kept pushing for the hydrogen bomb, was absolutely hilarious. It was so funny. I loved how they actually had the bomb going and he starts putting sunscreen on. I was like, what are you doing? He's definitely a pivotal character because we do know about the hydrogen bomb that came later on. I found that so funny. Like, he was such an underdog character as well. I absolutely loved his role. And lastly, Rami Malek's character, Rami Malek, he was like the assistant. I loved that. How he was like the quiet one, kind of in the background, just assisting, taking down notes. And later on, everyone thinks he'll just support Strauss. And he's like, actually, no. Like, I'm here for 2 minutes and I'm going to spill some beans. And he literally did. And I found that absolutely hilarious. And I absolutely loved that he got his comeuppance. He literally did. And Rami Malek was the character to spill it. So I also liked his role as well. Very important role too. Absolutely loved it. I guess the last thing I have to sum up everything was it's a really good movie. Oh my god, it was so funny, the explosion when it actually happened. Like everybody else, I thought it would just be like boom. Like I said, I don't know much about that. That's not my area of expertise. But it was so quiet and I was like, oh wow, okay, it's actually going to be pretty quiet the whole time. Probably going to focus more on the visuals, and then like came out of nowhere and I was actually jumped. I was like, what the freak? That's so loud. But they said that's what the experience was like. It was just bright light and it was quiet, and then it was the actual loud noise and shockwaves came afterwards. Absolutely terrifying, by the way. Absolutely bloody terrifying. And I guess I like how it ended. It was pretty good. I like how everything closed up. I think it tied in really well, and it tells the story quite well. I guess the pace is just a little bit. Also found it hilarious. I was watching Barbie and I could hear the explosions whilst Barbie was having a meltdown. It was absolutely hilarious. I could just hear in the background and I was like, oh my god, I think I know what scene that is. It was so funny. Like that meme was so true. You're watching Barbie and you can literally hear Oppenheimer explosions in the next room. It was so funny. But overall a great film, very semi-educational actually, and also highlights how what you create and anything that you create, if it's going to impact another human being, there should definitely be limits. Because if you give someone power without limitation, it just creates chaos and like chaos, damage, destruction. And in the end, no one wins, because who wants to take responsibility for the damage that they caused? No one does. So you pinpoint it on somebody else, and then that takes revenge onto somebody else who blames somebody else, and the cycle just continues. So I think creation without limitation is very destructive, and it's one of the key messages that I got from the movie. And I think it's very vital today, because you've got all these people across the world, all these men in position of power, and to remind them without limitation, like nothing good comes from it. Absolutely nothing does. Like you got to have a balance. If you're in it for the cast, it's still worth it. Like everyone did such a good job, and there's so many familiar faces. I kid you not, it's like playing like Where's Wally but with actors, literally on screen. It was so good. Even the action and the storytelling, and I guess if you're into world building, if you're into creative processes, you'd still find it engaging. I definitely would highlight it, and I'm not going to give it a star rating. I just think you will enjoy it. And I went in there with an open book, not knowing much at all, in it for just in it, and in it for the story, and for the screen, and for the director, and the actors. And it was worth it. So I highly recommend. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought as well down below about Oppenheimer. Your review, did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you confused by anything? What do you think about Oppenheimer and Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Strauss? Is there any other characters that you really liked? Is there a scene that you liked? Is there a part where your heart was just gut-wrenched and really sad? Let me know down below. I would love to know what you thought about this movie too. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.